to my channel. This is a reading for Cancer, and this is again just current energy for the month of October. Just going to do this until my phone dies. I just thought I had a few extra minutes, so I thought I'd throw something out there for you guys. So what I'm looking at right now is it looks like and of course I'm going to be doing advice. I should also mention, if you're new to my channel, how I read the cards is I do the immediate energy first, and then we'll get into the clarify. Certainly anything that's major arcana that comes out is going to be a lot more noteworthy, and I do see one of the cards here being quite significant. I have pre-pulled, so just to expedite the process here, so it's not as too far along and too drawn out. What I want to say though is this does look to be a time of healing. So whoever this resonates for, there's still a lot of healing energy going on here. I do feel like something may have taken you aback this month because there is a tower moment that has shown itself. And especially when it's coupled with a lot of the swords energy that I see here, it looks like this could very well be around a fire sign or Aries, Sagittarius, something like that. Or somebody who tends to be a lot more, outgoing, gregarious, that kind of thing. And certainly there's a lot of energy here about withdrawn, but you are going through a completion here, as what I see. So just in sort of referring to the cards again, main energies out will be the Three of Swords, the Seven of Swords, the Knight of Swords, and the Tower. So what that means is and your major arcana is the Tower, so that is something that is a huge change here for you. But the minor arcana, of course, are the little things that you're trying to sort of work through, residual energy, and it may play out over the course of a few months. So you're not all making decisions on a Monday or a Thursday or whatever, or what have you there. So what I will say is, when you find this may be an energy that you're currently in or going into, again, if it resonates for you, or it may be something just a little further out. So, but just know that this is an energy of resolving things, even though there's a lot of energy around kind of a hurtful sort of aspect of it right now. What I'm going to say, and again, I'll give the advice as well throughout the cards, toward the end, it'll be a little bit of a summary. Jumping in. Three of Swords here is an indicator that I feel like you're going through some, disappointment for sure. You reflecting on some of the difficulties, some of the hardships. And I do feel like it may be necessary to this is you trying to release the pain in some way. And again, with the three, this is also, when it's followed up by Queen of Swords, it's like a distance from either, somebody who may represent as Libra, Gemini, Aquarius, but there's definitely some level of distance here in some kind of a conflictual energy. So there's heartbreak around this, or there's some kind of pain. So whether this is something that you yourself are indicating that you have currently been going through this, and I kind of feel like that's what it is. This is energy that's already out there. It's not something that you're just coming into. Could be in around a family situation or a mother energy. Could also be around somebody who has kids. But there's definitely something here. Could even be something that's drinking involved with the Ten of Cups. Usually it's a card of happiness. And generally if it's in reverse, I want to say that would be something that is kind of a telltale sign of things. But because it's coupled around so many of these cards of abundance and happiness, so my feeling is it's a conflictual feeling. Just in this first set of cards, like I said, the Three of Swords does tell me that you're going through something where you feel like there's been a disappointment, and there's some kind of, there's some kind of level of development that you're going through at this point. So this is where you're trying to look inside yourself to release the old ideas, generate some new ones. It's along that line where you have to learn to the things you can't change. What is that? The Serenity Prayer. My mom used to always say that. And I should mention, I did recently lose my mom. So because of that, that is part of the reason why I have not been as active on the channel. So but anyway, what I want to say here, though, is that I do feel like in this energy here, you are still conflicted in some way. So there's a sense of being self-protection here as well. You're still very inward. You're still in a space of I don't want to say that you're fully dealing with it yet, but you are still in a healing space. So anyway, you're going through it. The things are, everything is sort of at the forefront. It's more along the side of, the surface. However, know that a lot of the energy in the read is a close-up cycle. And I have actually recently consulted another psychic person who is a medium as well that was quite incredible. And I should give out her name at some point here as well. But I want to say that because mediumship is different than psychic and different, like everybody's got some kind of a different gift. If you choose to develop it, clairvoyance and so forth, and psychometry and all of that. But this particular lady did do mediumship and was talking about things along that line when people have crossed over and what it is that she had seen. So if you're interested, I'll throw it out there. But anyway, getting back to the cards currently, like I said, Three of Swords is, I feel like even though you're sort of stuck in this energy of, a lot of conflict and heartbreak and all of that, the bottom of the deck is the Three of Wands. So this is a card that also indicates that, you're still looking, and you're trying to figure out where your life is headed. It's something along that line. I feel like you're feeling uncertain about what the future is actually creating here for you. So you're still in some kind of a transitional mental space. And it feels like sometimes like you feel like you're just on the edge of something. And it may be that, you're aware that something new must come in, but you're unsure how to step forward. It's something along that line because there is a desire for hope. This is also a card of expansion, but it's also of a delay. You can see the horizon in the distance, but there's still some, stepping stones to get there. But again, I feel like there's so much energy that's sort of in around, where you tend to focus more of your energy in this period seems to be around the negative. Now, I will say this because it's something that's very noteworthy. Everything has a frequency. The soul body has a light frequency as well. And so because of these things, you are looking at, anything with anxiety, anything with negativity, anything with any kind of hardship or one-dimensional sort of thinking also brings that kind of energy to you, meaning not that you can't overcome it, but you also make it harder on yourself. And I'm not saying when you're not going through a hard time that you shouldn't feel, the feelings that you're exploring. What I am saying, though, is sometimes when we spread ourselves too thin and we throw everything into the bucket and say, deal with it, that is something that's a little bit too much of an overwhelm. So it's almost better to deal with one aspect of things versus trying to take on all of the conflict at one time, because then you're shadowed by the anxiety and all the loss and the confusion. So it's really hard to see any hope. What I want to say here as well is this is still cards of mental processing. When we get to the Queen of Swords, I mean, this is definitely that energy of, again, queens are usually more of a receptive energy. I don't feel like it's outgoing energy. It's taking things in, searching for answers, things along that line, but it's also taking distance with the Queen of Swords. I feel like you're trying to use some level of judgment. Even though the queen is coming off as more of a mature energy, it's also that energy that, where you're starting to build up tension. And especially when it's right beside the Three of Swords, it's, I feel like you're setting some clear boundaries with the Queen of Swords here as well. And it's also a very independent energy. It's direct communication in the way that you want to speak to others. And it definitely feels like it's a very, I don't want to say organized because the thoughts that are coming through here don't seem fully organized. But it does feel like it's a very protective energy nonetheless. This is a problem-solving energy. This is somebody who's using or relying on their judgment and being more logical, separating themselves from their emotion to be able to, become a little more clear or sharp about how they're dealing with something. Now, I feel like you are hiding your feelings in this case. I'm going to say normally this is not a hiding of feelings necessarily so much as it is kind of a watering down of, how you communicate, because you're setting rules and it's, it's quick thinking, that kind of thing. And it's someone who has a lot of knowledge as well. But because I do see the Queen as a detached energy. This could be in a work situation. It could be dealing with somebody who, again, Leo, Gemini, Aquarius here as well. But I feel like you're being very discreet and keeping your opinions to yourself, more or less. And it's not the only card that comes through with that same tone. So this is almost that energy as well, is kind of a truth seeking. So I feel like you're not being very warm and receptive at this time. Your energy to me feels a little bit more cut off. It's not to say that you want to be in that energy. What it is telling me though is that the energy seems to be one of wanting something more, because when I see the Ten of Cups, you want this happiness, you want that ultimate, you want that closeness, you want something that's family oriented, you want something that is going to bring you a strong level of connection in your, it doesn't have to be family, but it can be friends or whatever. You want that emotional satisfaction. And I feel like it's like that feels like it's at a bit of a distance, the cards and the way that they're laid out here. So I feel like this is still in that energy of, it's close to you, but you may be rejecting it. And so the feelings are that you need or want a strong foundation. You want that true love. You want something that's more permanent. You want, to be completely happy. I mean, as most do, but it's also, you want to feel like you are loved and that you can expand that. And so it's a high level of achievement when you're Ten of Cups. It's the ultimate security, feeling safe, protected, feeling like you've achieved something. I feel like you're close to this energy though, especially when I see it next to the Empress. This could be someone who is, again, mother figure, could also be someone that you consider to be, brings you happiness, brings you that feeling of connectedness, and it satisfies you in some way. So again, there's a happy, secure feeling here in some kind of personal relationship. That's you at a distance with this person or something to that effect. This is only a card of a clarifier, because the main energy out, remember, was still the Three of Swords, which is the conflict card. So it's like you're trying to manifest this, but there's some sense of being pulled away from it, and for whatever the reasons are that the conflict is there for you. But I still feel like overall, there's still something there. There's still something positive. There's still something that refers to, again, this could be, you being more open or receptive. It's just right now you're not quite there, but that is sort of the goal. That's the intention. You're in that energy. It's just that you haven't quite found out how to kind of cross the bridge, I suppose, is what I'm trying to say there. Now again, I just want to go through a little bit with the Queen of Swords, because that can also indicate that there is a little bit of chaos going on in your world, especially when I see it out there with the Tower card. So I feel like trying to rationalize the pain in some way. You're putting some kind of mental order to that emotional chaos or whatever that's around you. And again, that's cutting people off, cutting off the emotion, and able to sort of survive and get through the day. So it's almost like compartmentalizing. You're putting the emotion into a bag until such time that you want to deal with it. But sometimes if it stays too long in that space, you forget that you have some attachment to it. And it's not attachment as in you identify with it as a character fault. That's not what I'm saying. What I am trying to say, though, is that, unable to mentally process something, at it from different angles. So, for example, if you were having difficulty with someone, realizing their human, elements, realizing where they are in their life, the things they may have been dealing with, trying to, in a sense, if you rationalize it and look at all the other factors, it makes it easier to pull yourself out of the actual judgment of the situation, and try to kind of negotiate some kind of acceptance or healing factor there. So, it's not about, so when you heal that's because you've arrived at some level of understanding, agreement, or where that person or the situation may have been, and because you have learned some level of acceptance of it, it's not to say you don't have boundaries. It just means that you're in a space of trying to heal yourself by learning some kind of compassion as well in the situation. I don't know if I made any sense saying that, but hopefully you caught on to what I'm saying there. But either way, I feel like you're rationalizing that pain. Again, you're trying to create some kind of order. And again, you're doing it by emotionally pulling away from things. There is, again, that Ten of Cups energy. So again, this could be a relationship that somebody meant, has meant to you as a family member, or it could be mother figure as well that's coming up. But there is definitely something that's in around abundance and happiness and a longing for a fullness, or that motherly love, or that peace, something that you consider abundance overall. I feel like you're torn between wanting to feel safe and loved and also needing to protect yourself. And that's why you've got the logic and the detachment here as well. So it's like you have suppressed grief beneath a cold or withdrawn kind of exterior here as well. Now, going into the next cards here is the Knight of Swords. Now, the Knight of Swords with Strength card, with the Seven of Cups and the Two of Pentacles. I feel like you're starting to come out of whatever this is, even though you're still very much in the mire of it. The Seven of Cups does indicate the level of confusion, but because we're starting out with the Knight of Swords, this is rushing in with a certain level of understanding and clarity. So it's almost like you've cut through some level of uncertainty and confusion, and you've got this conquering energy that's coming in. So it's more, I'm eager to overcome my obstacles. I feel brave. I'm feeling much more like I can defend myself or my belief systems, and it symbolizes really a situation where somebody feels like they've got enough information that they can feel the sudden surge to come forward and speak their truth. It feels like, and it could be almost quick communication, possibly in a defensive way, but and because this does suggest being all over the map a little bit with the Two of Pentacles, there's something there about kind of struggling back and forth, back and forth. So you might be coming across with a little bit of chaos in the way that you're communicating your point, but I feel like you are still trying to base things in some kind of solid reasoning or, a logical argument of sorts. So again, I feel like you're still aiming toward something, especially with the Knight of Swords. Like I said, that is ambition. That is, wanting to, it's taking a hasty kind of movement or action or words, more so words and things in the mind, I would say, to be coming through very strong is what I would say there. So I feel like maybe you're coming across a little bit aggressively in the way that you're seizing control of a situation. But I feel like it's sort of the first step in your healing. So it may be miscommunicated, but at the same time, it's how you're starting to try to empower yourself. So just be careful about how you come across. It's not to say that, and hi Peter Chief. No, but it's not to say that you don't have something here that is that's coming through with a very positive. It's just the way that it's coming through might be coming in a little chaotically. What I mean by this, because the Knight of Swords is here, like I said, it's like there's a restlessness, there's impulsive thought, it's things along that line. It does feel like, I still feel like there's a mental overload. It still feels like there's some sense of internal conflict when the Strength card is following the Knight of Swords, but that does indicate that there is an effort to sort of self-regulate. So you're trying hard to really control your reactions here. I do feel like there is some confusion with that Seven of Cups, feeling overwhelmed, mental illusion, fantasy, overwhelm, creating things in your mind that aren't necessarily true, but they feel true in the moment. But it sort of somehow it's a cathartic way of dealing with what your mind is telling you. So if, for example, you believed that, someone was deliberately trying to hurt you, then, you look for ways to reinforce it. And that's where your thoughts are racing between the extremes: escape, control, anger, restraint, fantasy, reality, all of that it's like a big emotional imbalance there. And it feels like it's almost internal contradictions going on there, especially with the Two of Pentacles. You're trying to sort of juggle through all of that. And like I say, it feels like you're winning. It feels like you have the upper hand, but the struggle is real. So I feel like you may be confronting also some kind of harsh truth as well. And I say that because when I see the followed up with the Queen of Wands, again, Aries, Leo, Sagittarius energy, the Tower is the main card out here. So there's some kind of shake up to your identity or a belief system or a relationship or something here that's collapsed in terms of an ego structure. So something that you believed you had control over, you now are realizing that you really don't, or something that you felt you had full understanding of, now it's shaken you. And so now you feel like you're not sure, what to hang on to. Now, the Queen of Wands does suggest that this you attempting to reclaim that power, that confidence after the shock. So I feel like you're in a bit of a fragile state in some way here. Because of that, it does put you into, even though you're back into the, energy of drive and reassert control again, that kind of thing with this energy, it still indicates that there's a fear of vulnerability here as well. Now, when we get to the next set of cards here, we are looking at the Seven of Swords. Now, the Seven of Swords is, again, it can be about lies or deceit or something like that that's around you. But because of this, to me, this is either old energy where you felt you've been lied to or deceived, or there's been some kind of, self-deception as well, or avoidance. But I tend to feel, because of the other cards here, there's so much internal work going on that I feel like that Seven of Swords is telling me your true feelings or behaviors, either from yourself or from others or both. Now, I do have the Wheel of Fortune here, so this is you going through a big change, and it does suggest some kind of a karmic cycle. We are also sitting at the Ten of Swords. This is moving into more of a close-up cycle. So again, the 9 and the 10 of Swords is that energy of the 10 is the final end of that that cycle. So what I'm saying here is now things are going to change for you in a more positive light. Now, everything doesn't just all of a sudden blossom overnight and it's flowers and daisies or whatever. And the reason why I would say that is because even after a really dark, heavy period where you've gone through a lot of hurt and betrayal or feelings of loss, even if somebody did come through with something more positive, you're not likely to trust it right away. So that's why it's a slow, incremental sort of phase toward. This is a phasing out of that negativity into something more positive, not an immediate energy. So again, I feel like there's a lot of self-deception or avoidance. You're hiding your true feelings or your behaviors or things that you're doing. And again, there's this energy of a karmic cycle, because is the 10 a Wheel of Fortune, but you're also at the 10 of Swords. That karmic cycle is over for you. So now you are going into, and what that means is it suggests that cycle of pain or defeat that you were feeling, you're surrendering to it. Yeah, that was a part of what happened. It's a part. It doesn't mean it's that's how things are going. You're ready for a new change. You're ready for that cycle to change. So the Emperor here does indicate there's a need for you to create structure for yourself. And I feel like your energy, I feel like you want to be in a space now where, you've given up control over the things that were hurtful to you. You're not even going to try to, assert yourself and you think should happen with those situations. It's almost like, well, that's how they are. That's what happened. This is, and now you're back in this space of Emperor. I'm, looking for structure. I'm putting up boundaries. This may be involving a father figure, Aries, Leo, Sagittarius, very strong with those particular energies in this one. But I do feel like it is an authority figure. So you could be dealing with something that you're trying to rebuild here, because the Hanged Man does indicate that there is a sense of surrendering to something. So it's changing your perspective, and you need to be able to do this. You have to surrender that control before you can rebuild. So however that, resonates for you, it can be something that, maybe you were trying to control. I'm trying to look for a really good example, because let me just see here. A good example of a situation that you're trying to control might be something like you're trying to control over finances or gain control over a work situation. Again, my examples usually suck here a little bit, but it's also things like, maybe you had this, maybe you had sort of a thought around worry, like you're worried about someone that you care about, or you're trying to manage your moods or the healing process. You're maybe trying to, you're in that space deep down where you feel like there's a fear of loss, turning it into anxiety. You're cycling through overthinking, how conversation will go, rehearsing it endlessly. It's things like that, micromanaging. It's things along the lines of, anything that is, anything that is uncertain, because you're overanalyzing, over worrying. It's things like that that you need to change your perspective around. You have to have a certain level of flexibility, meaning you allow for things to go wrong, because not everything is going to go right. We couldn't possibly know all of the events that will factor into our future. We don't know all of the things that will impact. So what I'm saying there is, when you plan a plan, don't plan for everything to work out perfectly. But I'm also saying, don't try to make a plan so that everything's going to fail. Make a plan that if something did go wrong, you potentially have a plan A, B, or C, or you have another, or you allow yourself, you allow yourself some level of give in a situation, so that you're not, so yes, you're taking responsibility for yourself, but not for someone else's emotions or mistakes. So it's kind of getting clear on what it is that you can control and what you can't control, but it's also allowing events to unfold. You can't possibly overanalyze, micromanage, control everything. There's going to be things that, maybe the money doesn't come in fast enough. So what would be, something else that you can do to alleviate some of the pressure? What are, like they say, when somebody's going through a lot of anxiety, things that you can do to sort of break the pattern is, break the thought. And how do you do that? You interrupt it. So, when you're trying to list 5 things in a room, for example, list things in the room that are all blue, list things around the room that are soft to touch, list things around the room, that may have a hard surface, soft surface, like whatever it is. But this, you have to interrupt that over analysis, paralysis sort of thinking. So what I want to say there, like I said, is I feel like you have to surrender to something. That's what the hangman energy is. I feel like even on the timeline for this, could be something in around a 3 to 6 month period before you really kind of get clear on where you're headed, and before you really trust, yourself and the decisions that you make. But again, allow yourself, it's okay, and I don't want to say fail, because it's not a fail. It's an exploration of who you are and how to get through life. And so you're not trying to fix your pain, you're trying to witness it without judgment, as they say. So yes, I have pain, and it's unfortunate that it worked out in the way that it did, but everybody came to the situation in the best light that they could with this, with the information that they had. So there's a certain level of acceptance in that. So it's not judging it, it's just encouraging you to see it in a more compassionate way. So it's also speaking to yourself, in that same way, with compassion, with truth, with honesty. Find ways to stability, calm your energy with meditation, anchor yourself with things that you find ground you, whether that's in nature, walks, exercise. Do small things that allow you to take control of your day, small responsibilities, maybe do 10 sit-ups in the day, or do something that is going to build your mind. Read a book, read a chapter, something that allows you to feel like you have, you're shaping yourself instead of breaking yourself. So it's things along that line, because what breaks you shapes you, as they say. And if you let that in, that suffering can go on and on and on, or you can make that, what you endured, allowing it to forge you with wisdom and compassion. So it's like forging steel. Steel, even with a knife, or sword, or whatever it is. It's the temperature. I don't know all the chemical elements of it, but I know it's the temperature that forges it and makes it stronger, and so that it can be reshaped. So the only way to go forward is through acceptance, surrendering to the things you can't control, and again, reconstruct it. But you're reconstructing things from a place of truth. You're not trying to erase the pain. You're not trying to protect from everything or avoid it. Just know that with everything, there's always going to be a potential for pain or difficulty or, and I don't want to say failure, because again, what you're doing is you're teaching yourself to learn the path for you, and it's going to be different for everybody. Everybody will take a path that has levels of, how do I say, taking 2 steps back, 1 step forward, 3 steps back, 2 steps forward. We're all going to take take a path that's going to have difficulties, because that's how you learn to create a wise mind or a space for yourself. And when you're wise, that's because you've learned something through the process of not having it go perfect. So like I said, this is where you're finding a way to meet the logic and the emotion. You're trying to find a way out to mesh that together. That's what creates a wise mind, is the integration of those things. So like I said, I feel like who you thought you were in your head, it's breaking the ego, enable for your true soul to come forward. And when you actually build yourself in what you feel is right, without judging yourself or other people, if you always do something that you feel is you, then, that's not something that you will, it's not something that you will change. So I'm going to leave it at that, and we're going to just here with the 9 of Swords again, just in a short little brief thing here. This is really about your black and white thinking. It's all of the anxiety that goes with it. But just, encourage thoughts, and then we'll go from there. Have a good day, guys. Soon.